And welcome back. You tune in to the HBCU Nation radio show, and I'm your host, Anthony Ray. Good to have you join the broadcast today. Well, we're blessed today to have joining us for a very special segment today, Michael Deegan-McCree. Michael is a legislative advocate concentrated on reforming the criminal legal system, protecting voting rights for all citizens, and ensuring access to quality mental health treatment. He currently serves as the partnerships coordinator at the Bail Project. Michael plays a pivotal role in developing grassroots and grasstops partnerships to enable the Bail Project to best serve, I should say, their clients. Michael is a native Californian, born and raised in the Bay Area. Before working for the Bail Project, Michael worked at the Dream Corps, where he served as the policy associate for the Cut 50 initiative, helping to lead their state and federal legislative efforts. While at Cut 50, Michael played a policy role in helping pass the First Step Act in 2018, landmark legislation that the New York Times said would deliver the most significant changes to our criminal justice system in a generation. Michael's concentration on racial and economic inequality within the criminal justice system stems from his progressive ideology, especially on issues of criminal legal and mental health reform. It is his belief that it takes coalitions of directly impacted people, along with unlikely allies from different political ideological beliefs, to deliver lasting structural change that will benefit our communities. Michael has also served as a district advisor to California State Senator Majority Whip Nancy Skinner and an assistant to Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California's 13th Congressional District. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for reaching out. You and I first reached out and connected on LinkedIn, I believe. And
yes.
Just check you out, say, hey, then call them, get the brother on the phone here, and let's set something up so we can talk about some of the great things that you're doing in reference to criminal legal system. And of course, as you also spoke about, the mental health treatment. But before we do that, let's talk about how you got involved in politics in the very first place and why are you so passionate about it?
Of course. I think the first time that I really got into politics, I was a college student.
Mm-hmm.
I went to St. Mary's College of California, up north near Oakland, California. And one of the things that really started to come to mind when I was getting into my studies was the ability to get involved and make a change in your community. I think the time that I was in college, was prime Barack Obama era, which had a huge influence on my life. And as I know, many of my colleagues, especially people of color, seeing an African-American man in a position of power where he was able to benefit the lives of so many, really had an impact on the ability that we might have one day and the potential that we had to get involved in the same way. So when I was in college, I really found that I could get involved in movements through community advocacy, but also through policy conversations with representatives from my city council in Oakland, California, all the way up through my United States representative, which was Congresswoman Barbara Lee when I was in college. And I thought, hey, you know what? If other people can get involved and make changes that they see fit in the community, why can't I? And so I started identifying things that I really cared about. One being criminal justice reform, voting rights. I saw that there was a lot wrong with our education system. And at the time, I wasn't really sure, what role I would play, where I fit in. And obviously later on, I came to find that was criminal justice reform. But that's how I initially got interested, just seeing that policy, advocacy, organizing, all of those things put together give us a tool in order to create change within our community. And I was really fired up about that. And so that's kind of how I got my introduction into politics.
I see. Now, what propelled you to really get involved with the criminal justice reform work?
That's a really great question. I think, especially today, we've got a lot of more mainstream avenues that are introducing people to the ills of our criminal legal system, whether it's the book Just Mercy by one of my idols, Brian Stevenson, which we now all know is recently come out as a movie, to the documentary that was put out by Ava DuVernay, 13th. For me, I think my true introduction to the criminal legal system and wanting to get involved with that was when I was a district staffer for State Senator Nancy Skinner. Part of my portfolio was public safety. She's also the chair of the Senate Public Safety Committee here in California. And in my portfolio, there was a resolution that she was introducing. Resolution is a little different than legislation. What it does is it kind of gauges the temperature of the legislature, if you will, to see if members feel comfortable with possibly confronting an issue. And so there was a resolution on the table coming from our office that was going to deal with the felony murder rule here in California. And for folks that aren't familiar with the felony murder rule, it's the rule that says if I am an accomplice to a murder, I am just as guilty as the person who may have pulled the trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And so we believed as an office, and many advocates believe, that this is a very, very unfair law. At the time, the organization that was supporting that piece of legislation was the Dream Corps and its initiative Cut 50, which is one of the lead criminal justice reform organizations in the country. Mm-hmm. It was founded by Van Jones, Jessica Jackson, and Matt Haney, who are all very, very well-known criminal justice advocates in this country. And so I got the pleasure of working with an organization kind of offhand with this resolution. And to be honest with you, I was really, really passionate about this one. I have to say that our community really came out to the district office to voice its support for this resolution. I took calls daily from family members, excited to see that this was something that was finally being considered. People sitting in a cell for 5, 10, 15 years for simply being in the area where a murder was committed. And most of the time, not even knowing that that was going to take place that night, right? Or that day. And so through this resolution passed, and I was extremely energized by the advocates who came out to speak in favor of it. I was extremely energized by the diversity of which we had backing this resolution, and even having people from the conservative side of the aisle speaking in favor of this resolution, saying that it seemed unfair and unjust. And I think for me, this was right after President Trump was elected. It really gave me an insight to see, hey, there is a pathway forward in a bipartisan manner, where we can just maybe confront the cancers of this criminal justice system. And so immediately after that victory, I knew that working on other policy issues at that time was not going to be something that I could continue on with. I needed to be in the game when it came to criminal justice reform. And so I reached out to Jessica Jackson, who at the time was the national director of Cut 50. She had a policy associate position open, and we sat down for about an hour and a half and just had lunch together, to be completely honest with you, and she hired me. And so that really broke me into criminal justice reform, which, even being in this work, has really, really opened my eyes to even the things that I didn't see from a correct vantage point. But that's how I got into this work.
If you're just joining us, You tune in to the HBCU Nation radio show, and I'm your host, Anthony Ray. Glad to have you join the broadcast today. Joining us for a very special segment to talk about criminal justice reform is Michael Deegan-McCree. He is a legislative advocate concentrated on reforming the criminal legal system, protecting voting rights for all citizens, and ensuring access to quality mental health treatment. He currently serves as the partnerships coordinator at the Bail Project. Michael plays a pivotal role in developing grassroots and grasstops partnerships to enable the Bail Project to best serve their clients. Again, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. It's so
Absolutely.
important.
It's so important. It's so important. Again, bravo Zulu, as we say in the Navy, for all the great work you've been doing. And we really appreciate your passion and your commitment to criminal justice reform, and also doing all that you can to help with what sometimes is really taboo in our community, mental health reform. And
Yes.
so we really appreciate that. Now, before we wrap this up, of course, your concentration on racial and economic inequality within the criminal justice system stems from your progressive ideology,
Right.
issues. Now, it also, I love the fact that, and you already talked about this a little bit, you can expand and elaborate even more on it. It is your belief that it takes coalitions of directly impacted people along with unlikely allies to from different political ideological beliefs to deliver lasting structural change. And we've seen that, we really have. This is really amazing. Despite all the rhetoric and all the things that we seem not to be able to get together in Washington and across the country on, looks like this criminal justice reform, man, this is happening from a real, incredibly wonderful, quite frankly, bipartisan effort, isn't it?
Right. It is. It is. If you really look at this issue of criminal justice reform for such a long time, it was used as a weapon, a political weapon. And we're talking about human lives here, right? We're talking about people, but it was conveniently used for so many political campaigns, from presidential campaigns, notoriously the campaign of 1988 between George H.W. Bush and Michael Dukakis, all the way through up until Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. You had this very, very black and white political belief that Democrats were weak on crime, right? That they didn't care about the public safety, that they wanted, weekend visits for hardened, longtime criminals, and that Republicans were the party of being tough on crime and caring about the victim. And this narrative was extremely, extremely dangerous, and really built out the system that we have today that has brought us the cancer of mass incarceration.
Dating back to the Clinton years.
Yeah, all the way, 1988 bringing us to 1994. Exactly.
Yes. Right.
And so what's very dangerous about that is that we created the system of over-militarizing our police forces, of over-surveilling our communities, and for locking people up for unimaginable amount of time for some things that today, now we look back and we say, hey, there are socioeconomic reasons why some of these decisions may have been made, and locking people up and giving them no place to rehabilitate or redeem themselves is not keeping our community safer, and it's actually harming the fabric of our country. And so when I talk about it being important for us to, one, let those who are directly impacted by this system and by this issue lead, I talk about that because if you have not been directly impacted by the criminal justice system, you should not be someone telling someone who has been impacted what needs to be done to reform this system. Number two, the reason why I say that having a coalition of unlikely allies who have been impacted by this system, meaning politically both Democrats and Republicans, that's very important because this system that we've created is not prejudice against which political party you may align yourself with, right? It doesn't care if you are a Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't care if you are a liberal or a conservative. The system is meant to break those who may have made a mistake, right? It is made to unjustly prosecute primarily people of color and people from impoverished communities. And the only way that we're going to get out of this hole is by having a conversation with people who align themselves with both ideologies in order to not reconstruct, but reimagine a new system that is based on rehabilitating the community. And I think one of the things that always has stuck in my mind is a quote that was given to me by Erin Haney. Erin Haney is the policy director for Reform, and she was my former boss at Cut 50, in saying that we need to envision a criminal justice system that champions treatment over punishment and rehabilitation over retribution. And I'll say that again because I think it's so powerful and so true. We need a system that envisions a criminal justice system that champions treatment over punishment and rehabilitation over retribution. And the reason I think that's so important is it really gives a great perspective on understanding that we have a system that was built to strip dignity from people. And we have a system that has not allowed our entire community to understand how important empathy is when it comes to this conversation. And so as soon as we are able to have a conversation about dignity, about empathy, about a system that was built to punish those that don't have the economic means to stand up for themselves in a system that has forgotten the presumption of innocence, we need to have allies of both ideologies at the table to fix this issue.
Absolutely. Michael Deegan-McCree is a legislative advocate concentrated on reforming the criminal legal system, protecting voting rights for all citizens, and ensuring access to quality mental health treatment. He currently serves as the partnerships coordinator at the Bail Project. Michael plays a pivotal role in developing grassroots and grasstops partnerships to enable the Bail Project to best serve their clients. You can learn more at bailproject.org. Michael Deegan-McCree, thanks so much for doing the broadcast today and for all that you do. Of
course. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's really, really important that we get this message out there. And I do just want to end up with giving a slight call to action. If anybody is interested in getting involved in this fight of criminal justice reform and specifically cash bail, I think it's really important that your listeners take account. And what I mean by that is take time someday just to walk into a courthouse and sit down and be witness to this system that is so broken. Giving yourself witness to this system that is so broken and understanding that when a district attorney says on behalf of the people, you are those people. The district attorney is acting on behalf of you. And if you think that this system is prosecuting in an unjust manner, then it is also on you. It is also your ability and your responsibility to go speak with your lawmakers, to vote out lawmakers who are passing legislation that is unjust so that we can reform this system. So that's the only call to action that I would really like to ask. And of course, as you've mentioned, going to bailproject.org and donating a little bit of money as well also helps us continue to fight this great fight. I really appreciate you having me on today. Absolutely. Michael Deegan-McCree with the Bail Project. Learn more at bailproject.org. Hey, Michael,
Thanks a lot for all that you do, brother. We'll be back with you, and we'll get loop things back in and talk things a little bit more, particularly about the whole situation with cash bail.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks a lot. God bless. Until next time.
God bless. Bye-bye.
All right.